If you are bored and have nothing to do, it's time for a story between me and you. Sit down or lie down or pull up a chair. Inside my head is the story I'll share. This is the coffee can I made into a drum, and then I decided to decorate it with some beads. You could do the same. Nice to see you, my friends. It's been a while. I'm going to tell you a story today about Ricky the Dragon. There's a picture of him and his good friend Agatha. That's Agatha. And Ricky the Dragon lived on the side of a cliff in a cave with his mum, Isabel. And Agatha lived across the ocean from him, so he would often fly to her house and they would go on adventures. So today was a very special day. He was going on adventure, and he flew over to her house with his mum, and he knocked on the door with his talon, which is his nail. He knocked on the door. Agatha opened the door and she said, "Oh my gosh," she said, "I'm so happy to see both of you. Isabel, Ricky, come on in." She said, "I've got a friend who's going to be joining us today. We are going to fly to Niagara Falls, and I was hoping that we could jump on your back and fly. But my friend Denzel is 6 years old, and Denzel is kind of sad right now. He's sad because he's just having a hard time. And she said, I thought perhaps we could go on an adventure. But she said, I've been working very hard making something special, creating something that we can strap onto your back so that Denzel, in his wheelchair, his electric wheelchair, can sit on top of there and be strapped in and be safe. What do you think, Ricky?" Ricky said, "Oh, I think that's a great idea. Thank you. I can't wait, Agatha." She said, "Now listen, you can't be flying upside down though, okay?" And he said, "Oh, okay," because sometimes he would do that. And Isabel, his mum, started laughing. She said, "Oh, that is so funny." She said, "I see him flying upside down all the time around the ocean, playing with his friends in the ocean or the sea creatures." So what happened was Denzel's dad brought him over. His dad's name was Ted, and Ted brought him over. And Ted and Agatha lifted up the wheelchair that Denzel was in. Now, I'll show you a picture of the wheelchair. It kind of looks like this. And this one is colored with yellow and green. And it's actually an electric wheelchair. So it has a battery in it. So that there's a little thing here, you can't see it, but it's a toggle stick, like a joystick. And he can move that wheelchair forward and backwards and not sideways, I guess around, and maneuver it. Now, so his dad, Ted, and Agatha lifted him up, like really high, and got him onto the back of this. There was these great big, not ropes, but, oh gosh, what do they call them? Straps that they had. Now, I'm going to show you a little example. So she made this contraption where if this was the bottom and this was the wheel of his wheelchair, the wheelchair could click in there like that and not move and be safe. Can you imagine that on the 4 wheelchairs? 2 of the wheels were larger and 2 were smaller. Well, I showed you the picture, so you already know that. So anyway, they got on board and off they went, like flying across the ocean and off to the wonderful, fantastic Niagara Falls in Canada. And right here, this is the Maid of the Mist. That's actually a little boat. It's not a little boat. Quite a few people can get on there. But you can go there and then you can travel and you can see the Niagara Falls. I see a rainbow. I also see in the distance a bridge. That's called the Rainbow Bridge. And there's another set of falls here, and that's the falls in the United States of America. So we've got the Canadian Falls and the American Falls. And I'll show you another picture. This is a good one. This shows you Niagara Falls, where there's a hotel right there. That would be a nice place to stay, wouldn't it? Down here is a road, and these are actually little tiny people. They look like ants, and they're looking at the falls. They're observing and they're watching. So they flew to Niagara Falls, and once they got there, they were flying around and around. And Denzel was laughing. He had his arms in the air. He didn't care. He was really excited. He was all strapped in. And the spray from the falls, the water, was pouring on them. They were absolutely soaking wet. They wanted to also go onto the Maid of the Mist, which is the boat that I showed you. So there was an elevator, which was great, so that they could take Denzel down, get him on the boat. Now, Ricky and his mum, Isabel, they decided to fly around, not go on the boat, because at that time people were allowed on the boat then, before the pandemic, and there were too many people. So what they did was they flew around, and Agatha and Denzel had to put on these, if you can imagine, it's like a little raincoat, plastic, and it covers your whole face like this, so that your hair and everything doesn't get wet. But they didn't care. They didn't mind. So off they went on the Maid of the Mist, went out on the water, and they got sprayed with more water. And when they came back, they decided they were getting a bit peckish. That means they were getting a bit hungry. So they decided to go to one of the restaurants. And when they got to the restaurant and they got inside, they wanted to sit upstairs. There was a patio. And the manager was in the building somewhere, but the waitress said, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but we only have stairs to go upstairs. So I'm not sure how you're going to get, your friend here in the wheelchair up." Agatha looked at her. She looked very puzzled. She couldn't believe it. She said, "Really?" She says, "Oh, well," and Ricky said, "I've got an idea." He said, "What is my mum and I?" And Isabel said, "Yes, we will pick up the wheelchair and we'll just fly up and put him on the patio." And that's exactly what they did. And they all had a fantastic lunch. Now, Ricky, after he had his main meal, he had a burger with French fries, one of my favorites. Although I like French fries with gravy. Dip the French fries in the gravy. He also had a piece of pie because he loved pie. It's one of his favorite things, and some ice cream. While they were sitting there, the manager came over and asked them how their meal was. And Agatha said, "The meal is fantastic. It's absolutely delicious. Thank you. And we're having a wonderful time looking at the Niagara Falls." But she said, "But I have a question for you." And he said, "Yes, what can I help you with?" And she said, "Well, I'm wondering why you don't have an elevator for friends, people, children and adults who might be in a wheelchair." He said, "I've been I've wanted to put one in for many years, but it's a lot of money. And I've been saving and saving, but I've had a hard time. I'm almost there, but it takes a lot to do that." So Agatha said, "Just a moment." She opened up her purse and she took out, I'm going to pretend, I don't have a check on you, but I'm going to pretend that this is a check, right? So she took the check out and she got a pen and she started writing down some numbers, and then she signed her signature. I'll show you. That's like a signature, right? Can you see that? That kind of thing. Anyway, so she wrote a number, and the number was quite high, and I bet you can't guess what it was. It's a lot of money. And she said to him, "Here's my check." She says, "I'm giving this to you as a gift." And she said, "I want you," oh gosh, there goes the telephone. Hang on a minute, because I'm not going to stop. Stay where you are, everybody. We can't have this. Let me call you back. I'm doing a story. Bye. Okay, I'm coming. Sorry, I don't want to start the story again. This happens sometimes. You get interrupted. That was my husband. He'll be fine. So what happened was she gave him the check. And she said, "I would love it if you would build an elevator that's glass on the side of the building, so that when our friends go up, everybody, including people who are standing up in the elevator, can see the Niagara Falls." And the manager, who had tears in his eyes, he couldn't believe it. He said, "Oh my gosh," he could hardly breathe. He goes, "You are so generous. What an absolutely wonderful thing to do." So he took the check and he said, "Thank you very much." Now, my friends, that was very kind of Agatha to do that, because it's very, very important that all of our friends can be mobile, can get around, and can go to places. I'm lucky because I can walk to the store. I can run. You guys can run. But some of our other friends might need a little bit more help to get to places. So everybody was very, very excited. Now, after they had their lunch, they all wiped their mouths because they had, Ricky had a bit of ketchup, on the side of his face. They went to this place called Ripley's Believe It or Not. And Ripley's Believe It or Not was a place where they had all sorts of things that were very strange. When I say that, very strange. They had a man, it wasn't a real man, it was a mannequin of a man who was really, really tall, like over 8 feet. And he was like the tallest man. I don't know if he was the tallest man in the world or maybe the tallest man in Canada. I'll have to look that up. So they all stood next to him and they had somebody else, excuse me, take a picture with Agatha's cell phone. And so they had a picture taken with it. And the guy in the Ripley's, believe it or not, was wearing a top hat, I think. They also saw some other artifacts, very strange things that they'd never seen before. Really strange skeletons. I know some of you kids love skeletons from Halloween. And they saw, there was a room there that was, if you went into the room, one side of the room, the person at one side looked really small and the person on the other side looked really tall, right? Is that small and tall? And it was interesting on how could that possibly be? But anyway, after they'd finished looking at some of the souvenirs, they wanted to buy a few things to take back to the house. They decided it was time to go home. Everybody was getting tired. Denzel was getting tired too, but he had the biggest smile on his face. He was so happy. He said, I've had the best time ever, Agatha, Ricky. I'm so happy. So they lifted him up. Isabel, Ricky's mum, and Agatha put him on Ricky's back, and off they went, flying back to Agatha's house. And they called ahead to make sure that his dad was there to get him off. And he went home with a big smile on his face. Agatha was very tired. She said, oh, I'm ready for a cup of tea. And then she watched Ricky and his mum fly off across the ocean. And as they were flying off, she saw Ricky waving down at his buddy, the humpback whale. And they went back to their cave, which was on the side of the cliff. Well, my friends, that's the end of my story today. And I really did miss you. I hope everybody's okay. And I want you all to take care with the pandemic. And I'll see you again. I've got another story in my head. It's going to come and it's got something to do with animals. You'll have to guess. Bye-bye. Bye.